Hello everybody. It's a beautiful day for late December in Manchester, New Hampshire. It's actually in the 40s today. And I had the day off, so I decided to check out the history of Hanover Street. And I brought my little dog Tux, as I usually do. But I found about 20 pictures, and I'm going to start with the newer pictures first and work my way down to the older stuff, which dates back to the late 1800s. But the first picture, as you can see, that I'm about to post, it starts off in 1974, as you can see the little Volkswagen Beetle in the road. But on the right, you can see the Machinist sign that's still present, and the Machinist company was a women's clothing store. And you can also see the Fruit Palace Luncheonette, which was located right about here. And I'm going to go to my next location. There's going to be a lot of pictures of the same area, but you're going to see how much it's changed over the years. And this picture was dated to 1972, and as you can see, there's a Tremblay moving truck parked in front of the Palace Theatre location. I don't think the Palace Theatre was operating during this time period, as the sign there's nothing on it as far as a schedule as when shows are going to be shown. So I don't think the Palace Theatre was functioning in 1972. Again, I'm not positive. And this is just another view of the same area. It's just at a slightly different angle. But as you can see, the old Palace Theatre sign is still present. And this picture was likely taken on the second floor of this apartment building, or the apartment building that used to be here, which got torn down many years ago. But as you can see, during the 70s, everything started to get really trashy looking. It started to go downhill in the 60s, but by the 80s, this area wasn't anything like it is now, and it got revamped, I believe, during the 90s. Anyway, I'm going to head over to my next little destination. Again, it's the same area again, but this picture was probably from the mid to late 70s. As you can see, where the original Palace Theatre sign is no longer there. And this was also the Machinist, they call it the Machinist Women's Clothing Store. And there was once a mural that was painted on the brick there that is no longer there. And this here is a really neat picture. It was dated to 1952, but you can see where the Machinist sign that was attached to the side of the building. Also, there's a sign about right here that says Singer, which was probably a Singer sewing machine business. And also the Strand movie theater, which was about right here, which is no longer here. As Hanover Street used to be a road full of movie theaters. It still is, as the Palace Theatre is still here, but I believe there was 2 or 3 of them at one point. And right here is the address that I got sent to, which is 25 Hanover Street. So at one point there was likely a building here before this parking lot got built. But the picture I'm looking at was dated to 1930, and it was an ad from a newspaper which was advertising for Goodman's bookstore. The address is 25 Hanover Street. It's possible that it could have been over here, but these are all the even numbers on this side of the road, so I get a feeling that it was right here. This picture here is really neat. It was dated to 1936. And as you can see, there was a gentleman selling newspapers on the sidewalk. This is on the corner of Hanover and Elm Street. That's the City Hall building, which is also beautiful. But anyways, as you can see back then, everything was a lot cleaner looking. People also had a lot more class, as this guy was even dressed up to sell newspapers. And located right here at number 22 Hanover Street was the Webster Tea Room, which was a small business that served tea. And this picture was dated to 1941. I don't have any exterior shots, but I managed to find an inside picture. And as you can see, all the employees, they all had the same exact uniform on, which is kind of neat for such a small business. And also, this building is incredibly beautiful. It really is. It's one of the nicest buildings in Manchester. And I'm glad that it's still here and they kept it up. As often as you see in my videos, they let a lot of things go in this city or they tear them down. And this photo here was dated to 1923, and it was once the location of Sam Johnson's Market. And this market operated until 1955, until it was ultimately destroyed and turned into this parking lot, as this business was also built at the same time, so they needed somewhere to park. But there's also a little bit of age in this area. As you can see, that's a very old apartment building. There's now a small cafe on the first floor, which is kind of a neat place. And you get this ugly modern building wedged in between these old vintage buildings, which doesn't look right, as this is what Manchester likes to do. But anyway, I'm going to head over to my next destination. And we're heading back down to where the theater district was. And up here, there's still a little bit of a mural left where you can see the word insurance on etched. That's painted onto this brick, not etched, painted. You can barely see it, but it's still there. And right about here, there's a picture dated to 1957, which was once the location of the, I think it was called the Strand Theatre, where people would obviously come here to watch movies back in the day. So right about here is where the picture was taken. And right now I'm heading over to 28 Hanover Street, but I wanted to get a footage of this archway here because it's absolutely beautiful. But number 28 Hanover Street was once the location of the Healy Brothers Tailor shop, as you'll see in the picture that I'm about to show. And here's a picture dated to 1912, but as I was looking up earlier, I also noticed there was a bunch of other old murals that you could barely see that are painted onto this brick. I'm not sure if my camera will pick them up, but I assure you that they are there. This area here on the corner of Pine Street it's pretty rough. Let's just say that. There's always homeless people hanging out here. But anyway, this was once the location of the old post office that was here. I managed to find quite a few old pictures of it, but I believe it was right about here, if you line the pictures right. It was a really cool building. I don't know why they destroyed it, or if maybe it burned down, but again, another foolish decision by the city to destroy such a beautiful building. If I were to guess, I would say it was right here. And this here is the post office that replaced the other one that I was just showing you. This one is also a solid granite built building that will last forever. I believe it was built in 1876. I'm just working off my memory as I looked this up last night. But as you can see, it's a very quality built post office. A modern day post office would never be built like this. It would be a cheap sheet metal building or made out of cinder blocks. And these were once gas lamps. So there used to be gas that was fed into these that would light up at night, obviously. And those are very impressive. And it just goes to show how humans have regressed as far as the way we do things. Modern day buildings are not built like this. They're just not. Everything's made out of like cinder blocks and cheap sheet metal due to greed and corruption. Nowadays, all these big businesses, they want buildings built as quickly and cheaply as possible, as they don't care about longevity. Where back in the day, they built these beautiful buildings and they intended with intention for them to last and keep a city beautiful forever. But unfortunately, modern times have not respected the older times, and this is what we end up with. And this picture, which is really cool, is not dated. So I'm going to guess it's either the very late 1800s or very early 1900s, as there's no vehicles, but there is a power pole with a power line going across the picture, so there was electricity. But you can also notice that there was a cobblestone road that used to go up and down this road. And everything was nice and fresh looking. And it was only 120 years ago, which really wasn't that long ago when you really think about it. Some people think 100 years is a long time, but it really isn't. This picture here was dated back to 1888, and it shows the remnants of a massive snow blizzard that rolled through the city. And as you can see, they did manage to clear the sidewalks. And obviously everything was shoveled by hand, as there was no gas-powered plows back then. So that must have been quite a task. But I could imagine that there was hundreds of people out here shoveling to get the roadway as well as the sidewalks cleared. They may have had plows attached to horses or oxen, but I'm going to wager that most of it was shoveled by hand, which is crazy. This picture here, which was taken in 1875, is the oldest picture that I could find. It was taken on the second floor of the City Hall building, which is right behind me. So it was taken right there. Obviously I can't get up there to get the right angle. But anyway, if you noticed, a little ways down on the left, there's a building with pillars on it, large granite columns anyway. And this was the first congregational church that was built in 1839, and it lasted until 1880. And here, what was originally called the Amoskeag Bank Building, which is a beautiful structure. It was built in 1913. But I believe in the 80s, they destroyed the right side of it, which is over here, as Citizens Bank bought it out, and they wanted to modernize it with this ugly concrete. But this area right here used to be columns and big beautiful windows, and they destroyed it and turned it into this ugly thing. And again, it just goes to show you that that's modern and that's old-time construction. The old stuff is always better. It's way better looking, and it lasts a lot longer. And it was made by real craftsmen. And this picture is showing where there was once a parade, where I believe happened here, as this was likely the home of the Hanover Common Square, which was basically a park. And it's still a park, and what's funny is I've actually come out here a couple times to go metal detecting, and there used to be a lot of homeless people that used to hang out in here, and they've been kicked out of here. They're not even allowed to hang out in here anymore. But a summer or two ago, you'd come here on a Saturday or whenever, there'd be like 30 homeless people in here just laying out on the ground and whatnot. So I'd go around behind them and metal detect, and I'd walk away with like $10 worth of change. And while I'm metal detecting, there'd always be homeless people coming up to me being like, hey, can I have that change? And I'd be like, no, why don't you go buy yourself a metal detector and find your own change, you know? But anyway, yeah, this was the Hanover Square, I believe. And as you can see, they banned everybody from this park. It's actually the central school is right there, so a lot of the kids, they come out here for gym class, and there was always homeless people out here, so they kicked them out. I am still on Hanover Street, but I've spoken to a few older people, including one of my neighbors, but I always talk to him about Manchester's history. But he always mentioned that Hanover Hill was known for having the nicest apartments in the city back in the day. And there's still remnants of some of these buildings, as some of them are still kept up, but many obviously have been neglected also. That is not a house, that is an apartment building, as all these buildings are. So at one point, you know, during the early 1900s or late 1800s, these were the nicest apartments in the city. Like this building here is mostly original. It's in great shape, it's all wood, and it's well taken care of. And it's absolutely beautiful. It really is. It's all got granite walls, granite steps. These are all the original railings. You know, they don't build apartments like this anymore, that's for sure. Nothing even close to this. So we'll take a walk on down. But as you can imagine, in the late 1800s and early 1900s, this was a very sought after area, as there was likely a trolley that went up and down this road, which led to the area that I was just in, which was the theater district. And this is its evil twin. And these buildings are called the Belmont buildings. And they obviously still are apartments. I'm not sure how they look inside anymore, but I'm sure they're still nice. And this is a cool house because it's shaped like an octagon. And it's still got the old carriage house attached to it, and that's where people would keep their horses back in the day. This building here was also once beautiful, but it's been vinyl sided, so they destroyed it, but it's in the process of being renovated. And you can still see hints of it, like you can see kind of like behind the vinyl siding where it's failing right there. And it's also got a slate roof, so this was once a beautiful building, which got destroyed by vinyl siding. And there's that octagon house. I get the sun in front of me, so if I go down you can probably see it a little better, but that's a cool structure also. And there's pretty good views up there. If you get one of these top level apartments, you can actually see the mountain range in Goffstown from up here. Again, this was a beautiful building also before they vinyled it. So there's no way of knowing what it looked like prior. So is this building. It's dilapidated. There's hoarders living here. I can tell just by all the junk outside. And it's not taken care of. wasn't going to add this to the video, but I kind of decided to anyway. Tux is getting a little tired, but he'll be all right. Yeah, that's a neat building, but as you can see, they are 100% hoarders. The inside of that house is pack-ratted with junk. I guarantee it. The floors are probably collapsing on themselves. I want to keep walking up and down these streets. I'm like so addicted to exploring and looking at things, but I can only make my videos so long. Nice stuff, that's for sure. Everything's original on this one except the front columns, which have been replaced. They probably rotted out, which does happen. But this is a neat building because it still has the large carriage house in the back. People call them garages, but that's where people would keep their carriages as well as their horses back in the day. See, that's a nice building. It's kept up. It's got a good owner, good landlord. I wish they were all like that, but they're not, because people are greedy, and they don't care. They just let things go to rot, or waste rather. And it's kind of sad. It really is, because landlords make plenty of money to, at least repaint their property every 10 years. It's just a drop in the bucket considering the money that they make. But that's what happens when people get greedy. And here's another beautiful building that's mostly original. It actually looks 100% original. I can tell just by the clapboards. See how they used to build things high and dry? Where modern houses, they're not built like 3 feet up in the air on granite blocks. So that's why modern houses rot. One of the reasons. The other reason is plywood and particle board does not last. I don't care what anyone says. As soon as that stuff gets wet, the glue fails and it delaminates. But you can also see there's a slate roof, which is very old. It's got all these little details on the top of these gables. It's really nice stuff. It really is. I'm sure at one point there was multiple colors here, and it was painted very detail orientated, but it still looks good. That's a beautiful, beautiful building. It really is. Same with the neighbor. The color's kind of ugly, but that's also a gorgeous building. And these are apartment buildings. They're not houses, like I said. Modern apartment buildings would never be built like this. Never. Nowadays, they're just a square vinyl block with a giant parking lot. And as you can see, that's an old carriage house right here. And we'll check out a few more, and I'm probably just going to end this video. There's a bunch of them on this road. If you keep going up, and it ends up, I think, towards Dairyfield Park or something like that. No, that's on Bridge Street, but there's a lot of there's more apartment buildings up this hill. I just didn't feel like walking up there. Another nice apartment building. This one's been vinyl, but they keep up with the trim anyway, so it still looks good. At least they partially saved it. I mean, it does cost money to scrape lead paint and repaint these places every 10 or 15 years, and I do understand that because I'm a painter and it's not cheap. But when these buildings have a fresh coat of paint on them, they're just absolutely beautiful. Nothing looks better than an old building with fresh paint on it. This one's still got the original columns. Look how beefy those things are. Nowadays the columns are just vinyl. They're just plastic. Yeah, another beautiful apartment building in Manchester. And this one's kept up, you know? Even though it's vinyl, they still take care of it. Same with these two. They're vinyl sided, but they still look good. More carriage houses. And here's another building that I'm sure many people in the city have driven by and not pay attention to, and most people probably think it's ugly. In a sense it is, because the colors are ugly. But I assure you that before they vinyled this building, that this was an absolutely stunning building. It really was. Look at the woodwork on this thing. And I'm still on Hanover Street, so this was a premier apartment back in the day. It's beautiful, it really is. Like, this archway is hand hewn, you can see it. That's all handmade. Either that or it's been sanded 100 times to get the lead paint off of, which is likely the case, but it was still handmade, I guarantee that. It wasn't milled at some machine factory like stuff is today. But it's a huge apartment building also. But anyway, I thought I'd throw that one in. And I'm going to conclude this video as I am out of pictures to explore. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the history of Hanover Street.